Today, I wanted to talk about a video that I made a couple days ago and how, in that video, which is now unlisted and will soon be removed off my channel, how why modern media sucks. I made the video with the express intent of of expressing my opinion. Although looking back at the video, I feel that it probably didn't come off the right way. So this is me trying to not justify it, but like explain it in a better way. When I made the video initially, I was tired, I was sleep deprived, but now having a little bit of rest and a little bit of rejuvenation and everything, I would safely say that I'm ready to remake the video. So to kind of give a little bit of a backstory, one, this is not factual. I am not saying this is any of this that I'm about to say is facts. This is just something that I've observed over the past 14 years, and this is just my own opinion. You can disagree or agree. If you agree or disagree, let me know down the comment section below and let me know. I would be more than obviously keep it civil. All right. Obviously, keep it civil. And again, this is just me expressing my own opinion. And if you're wondering, I am just a random guy on the internet who has a disability known as autism and ADHD. So I may have a little bit more of observance of things, of like the minute details and everything like that. But with that out of the way, hopefully with that disclaimer out of the way, again, this is just my own opinion. So don't, think that this is just me pointing the finger, which I felt that the video that I made a couple days ago was technically pointing the finger. Like, so keep that in mind. So to kind of give a little bit of a backstory on why I think modern media is the way it is. I grew up in the '90s and loving all sorts of form of media. Um, I still love all forms of media, although not as much now. Well, kind of, sort of, not really. I grew up playing video games. Video games being my favorite pastime. I remember having a Game Boy Color and a Game Boy Advance and GameCube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I remember watching movies like Lord of the Rings. I mean, I still watch them every single year, um, once a year, to kind of commemorate everything. I remember watching the Harry Potter movies, although I kind of stopped probably midway through the series as I kind of got bored of it. I remember watching movies like Star Wars um and and also I started to have a profound appreciation for older shows like the Transformers 1986 shows and He-Man and She-Ra and although I don't watch them anymore. Although I do watch the Transformer shows, I don't watch shows like He-Man anymore. But that's just some of the shows that I like to watch as a kid. I remember watching shows like Dick Van Dyke and I Dream of Jeannie, just to name a few, or Ghostbusters cartoons, right? Or Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, all that fun stuff. That's basically what I grew up with. And honestly, I was aware that these shows were criticized, or at least somewhat criticized, but it wasn't as much in your face as it is now. So, moving time forward at least 10 years or so, I was in high school and I remember, you know, watching Iron Man and watching the Avengers and watching like I don't think there was a I remember watching Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated cartoon version. Um and then I remember reading or at least hearing about Disney buying Marvel and Disney buying Star Wars. And I thought to myself, well, this could actually be a good thing because Disney is one of my favorite, used to be one of my favorite, movie companies of all time. I mean, I remember going to Disneyland and absolutely having a blast, even though I'm totally scared of heights and didn't go on a whole lot of rides. I still had fun. Um, And as a person who grew up watching the Disney movies, um, I was excited. And then pretty much right around the time, 2 years after, or a year or so, 2 years after I graduated high school, which was 2014, I watched The Force Awakens. I think that's when Force Awakens came out. I actually can't remember when Force Awakens came out because I technically don't count the sequels as like the actual part of the trilogy. And I and I'm sure others felt this way too, but I'm just only speaking for myself. I thought to myself when I watched the movie, they could have gone many different directions with this. They could go in so many different directions. You can kind of like go in the corners or in the up, down, whatever, or even in the middle. Did I like that they killed off Harrison Ford's character? No, I didn't. But you know what? I can kind of see why they did it. And I also thought it's like, oh, well, maybe Finn is going to be like another Mace Windu or something along those lines, and Rey is going to be training alongside her, and Rey is going to be training alongside him, and whatever. And I was like, okay, this is actually getting me excited, right? Then, in retrospect, I remember watching The Last Jedi, and let me put it out there: the prequels were met with criticism, right? But again, they weren't as in your face as they are now. When I say that, I remember the amount of criticism that The Last Jedi had. All of a sudden, the same criticism, the difference that I find, and I'll get to my reasoning why the showrunners, I basically what I'm trying to say is all of a sudden we're the bad guys. We are the ones that should be shunned. We are the ones that should be um ridiculed and everything for not liking the same for wanting a good movie, or um for not liking, for like, it's like we don't aren't allowed to have our own opinions. And I'm like my many others, or at least for myself, of course, um when I was looking this up, and I'm like, why are the showrunners attacking the fans when they just didn't like the movie, right? Again, when Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, respectively, and unfortunately Marvel kind of hit this wall as well. I think after Endgame, Avengers Endgame, that's when it went downhill. I could go into a lot of nuances on why that is, but whatever, it is what it is. Obviously, if you paid attention the last 5 6 years, you kind of know where Marvel and Star Wars went. I'm not going to go into too much detail. So, um, the the amount of criticism, right, was palpable, and unfortunately, all of a sudden, we were the bad guys. We were the ones that were being attacked and being called, I don't know, every single word in the book, right, and for not liking the movie or whatever. Because I feel, and this, like, again, this is just my own opinion. I feel like Disney was starting and trying to to adhere to an audience that existed but not really existed. It was there, but it was the vast minority of people, where the vast majority of people just wanted what the old Star Wars brought, at least in my opinion. And with Marvel, it was kind of the same thing. After Endgame, I think the last movie that I remember seeing was Rise of Skywalker, and I was bored out of my mind, but I still went because my roommate wanted to see it. So we went and I saw it, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of saw the curve before, as much as everybody else, as much as anybody else did. I mean, obviously there are still people that still like the shows, and I'm not saying that you cannot like the shows. I'm just saying that for me, I didn't care for them. And I watched Mandalorian, I watched um Andor and everything, and I really liked those shows. But then it kind of followed a pattern of, with every or with every show that was like seemed good, or seemed okay or whatever, there was at least 10 bad shows that followed. And it was the same with Marvel. It was, although Marvel unfortunately fell into a bad spot where, after Endgame, as I said, there was a lot of movies that I didn't care for, and a lot of the stuff that I heard, again, heard, put that in air quotes, heard, was showrunners attacking fans and for not liking or not wanting to see or not adhering to someone's opinions or whatever. I don't know. Like, you can kind of think of something, right? Again, I'm not a political guy. I don't care about politics. I don't care about politics. I don't care about anything. I kind of shut my brain off when that topic comes up. I don't like talking about it too much, and I think the reason I don't like talking about it is for anybody's reasons. I just want to live my life. I kind of stick in my own lane, and I just keep my head down and I live my life. That's what I do. Um, but again, so I'm not, and every single Marvel movie that came out just wasn't good in my opinion. I didn't care to watch it. I watched a few clips on YouTube and everything, and I was just immediately turned off. I was just, and look, I understand. Like I said, there are people that like the movies, and I'm not saying there aren't those people. I'm just only speaking for myself, and the clips that I saw kind of made me not want to watch the actual movies. Sure, probably this Guardians of the Galaxy was actually halfway decent, and it was actually considered a good movie because it didn't actually, you know, change what it was, right? But again, my own opinion. Now we come to games. And games are not a sore subject for me, but something that I am very passionate about, more so than I will ever be about movies. I haven't watched a single movie. In all honesty, I actually watch older movies and older shows than anything. I don't watch any of the newer stuff. And if I'm kind of going on Disney, Disney was kind of the same thing. The last straw for me for Disney was the last two movies that came out this year. That was the last. I mean, obviously, I was like, okay, whatever. Ariel is black in Little Mermaid. Who cares, right? Or Mulan, they took out Mushu or whatever, right? I wasn't caring enough. And a friend of mine actually told me the reason they that Disney, and I actually kind of had to think about this. The reason Disney isn't making new movies is because they own the IPs and they can just sit there and make remakes after remakes after remakes after remakes. And I had to kind of think about that. And unfortunately, that is very true because Disney has no rhyme or reason to make new movies, even though fans want them so much. They have no reason, is because they own the IPs. They own the IPs, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. And regardless of what we say and do, that is the unfortunate side. That is the unfortunate thing. Now, um, with all that, uh, with all that and everything, um, personally, nowadays people are speaking with their wallets, right? With movies, especially, and games too, right? And now I'm going to go into the gaming side of things. I remember playing games like Ratchet and Clank and games like Jak and Daxter, or however you pronounce his name. 'Cause, and Black Assassin's Creed, and I think the last Assassin's Creed I remember playing was Valhalla, and I was like, yeah, well, it's not really that, but I was an avid Ubisoft hater. Um, but I was kind of turned off by Valhalla. Syndicate, I think, was the last Assassin's Creed game that I actually enjoyed, apart from Black Flag. Um, and when Origins came out, I was like, okay, I'll play the game. And this is just this one company out of the many companies, right? I'll kind of get into my new details. Um, where Origins, I got instantly bored. I didn't like the mechanics of the game, and I was very confused on why we needed two-handed weapons. And I think that started to become the norm for most Assassin's Creed games, at least in my opinion. Um, and I was like, I got bored with Origins. I was like, so I was kind of on the fence of it. I didn't like the combat. Open world was nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I just was like, when in Syndicate, it took about give or take 5 minutes to like go, or like at least 30 minutes to go from point A to point B. It took me about an hour of riding across the desert um, to get to a certain place or a loading screen or whatever, right? And I get it, it's in Egypt, but still, it shouldn't have had to be like that. And so I played Odyssey, and instantly got turned off by the big world. Again, I get it. It's Greece. It's huge. But again, it didn't have to be that big of a game. And I think Ubisoft's problem, or had many problems, or started to have many problems, where it was trying to make the Assassin's Creed game into what it wasn't. And that was an open world game. And a lot of people's criticisms and I probably paid more attention to video game news than I did about movie news at all. And I all I heard was it was too big, people didn't like the story, or you can kind of name things, right? With Valhalla, I got lost so many times in that game that I honestly didn't know what was the main quest and what was a bloody side quest. I honestly didn't know, and that was the problem. And and I think during COVID and even after COVID, that's when things kind of started to go downhill. Video games was a slow burn for people. At least for me, it was. You know, it didn't really start peaking in terms of people paying attention to stuff until like probably after COVID. Uh, and and then like you had the massive layoffs, and you had everything, voice actors going on strike. You could kind of think of a number of problems that are probably that have happened in recent years. you know and heck, I don't even remember the Mirage as an Assassin's Creed game, in all honesty. And I don't even remember the announcement trailer. I don't even remember it being a game. In 20, I think it was what, 2023 is when that game came out. I actually don't remember because I didn't care. I started to and really not care. And then you had games like Baldur's Gate 3 again, and Space Marine 2 again. The thing of, for every good game there was at least 10 bad games. One of the games that I was really upset about, which I was kind of excited about, but everything that I heard about it was like, well, Skull and Bones, right? Skull and Bones barely got off the ground. It was a quadruple A game. And I was like, it was a quadruple A game. And it was basically just an Assassin's Creed Black Flag knockoff, in my opinion. Seeing gameplay of it, immediately, like, because like a lot of the things that you could do in Black Flag you couldn't do in Skull and Bones. Just as a prime example, Concord again. Concord was, I mean, I don't even have to say anything about Concord. And I think what the nail in the coffin for me was why I play older games is Assassin's Creed Shadow and Avowed. Assassin's Creed Shadow, now I do give it credit where credit is due. Visually, it is gorgeous. I think it's probably one of the better gorgeous games that Ubisoft has ever made, at least in my opinion. Now I know there are people that are probably, you know, rolling their eyes, and ultimately it's like, Like, well, it's not a gorgeous game or whatever. Again, it's my opinion. You don't have to agree with my opinion. Um, but combat wise, it it needed room. It could use some improvement, but I know Ubisoft's probably not going to do that. And Avowed, again, I was really excited for Avowed, you know, because when it was announced, I think in 2020 or 2021, it was named, or people in the comment section of that announcement trailer was like, it was dubbed the Skyrim killer or the Skyrim successor or whatever have you, right? When you look at the announcement trailer versus what we got, um, it was two totally different games. And I think I read an article or I was watching a video of something related to this, where I think there was like change in management or developers or whatever the case was, and I think the lead decided on, we're not gonna make an equivalent to Skyrim. We're just gonna make it its own thing, which is totally fine. I'm not knocking them off, but when you play the game, and people compare it to Skyrim and how different the two games are, and how, in my opinion, Skyrim did everything infinitely better than Avowed ever will, or Oblivion, right? People started comparing Oblivion to Avowed and Skyrim to Avowed, and the differences were palpable. Skyrim and Oblivion, respectively, if I'm looking at those, did the minute, simple, tiny little details right. If you Because they were open world, you could be an assassin, pickpocketing thief, or assassin and pickpocketing who doesn't use stealth archer or snipes or whatever, right? You can kind of mix and match playthroughs. Again, player choice, player freedom. Although I think Skyrim was more watered down, you could still make that choice. If you wanted to do an illusion spell, right, or frenzy your opponents, or assassination targets in the game, right? Um, uh, and watch them just go ham on people, and then ended up, it's like, hey, you just you know eliminated the target without eliminating the target, getting your hands dirty, so to speak. That's player choice. Avowed, you can't even pickpocket. You can't even steal stuff. You could just take stuff without asking. And you can't even, the lock picking is absolute, garbage. There are a lot of things that was wrong with that game. At least the comparison videos that I saw. Again, I don't own it, I don't play it. But again, that's just an example. And when you're making an open world game, it's like whatever. But again, when it was met with criticism, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Avowed, Concord, or Skull and Bones, when it was met with criticism, all of a sudden we're the bad guys. And all of a sudden, we're the ones that should be shunned. We're the ones that should be, ridiculed and hushed and everything. I guess nowadays, including myself, of course, I don't have any money to buy anything. It's regardless. I personally am thinking with my wallet and what games I want to buy. I think that's why a lot of people are going with indie games. Kingdom Come Deliverance, I think, was an indie game, and it was really good. I'm not saying, you should be, saying everything needs to be Kingdom Come Deliverance, but you kind of get the point. I'm actually really excited for Wayward Realms, from Once Lost Games. If you know anything about that indie developer, the writers of that developer, the founders, um, were once writers and producers and directors at Bethesda. I think there were three of them. I only know two: Julian LeFay and Ted Peterson. Right? I don't know the third one. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they were original writers of Arena and Daggerfall. They left to found Once Lost Games, and I've seen a lot of I've seen a couple of interviews, not a lot of interviews, but a couple of interviews about what the differences is, the similarities and differences for Wayward Realms. And honestly, in my honest opinion, uh, they said, I think they explained it in an interview where they said it's basically an equivalent to Daggerfall only in a modern engine, which I'm really excited for. I think that'll be a great thing because once I eventually do my Daggerfall playthrough, I'll be buying Wayward Realms just to kind of see the similarities and differences. Um, I'll be really excited. And, I'm currently doing a Morrowind playthrough right now. I've already done the original Oblivion. I think I'm still on the fence of doing an Oblivion remastered playthrough. But regardless, that's just my opinion, right? And that's all they are, opinions. Hopefully you enjoyed or at least somewhat followed my excessive rant. I wouldn't even call it a rant. I think it's just a guy that's expressing his opinion. Apparently, I cannot speak today. Um, but yeah. Anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments section below, and I'll probably rename the title to something a little less finger pointy, as not come off crude and and kind of like assholery. So, but anyways, guys, I hope that you all enjoy your day, evening, night, or whether or not if you're asleep right now, it doesn't matter. Um, anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay happy, stay healthy. If you want to join the Discord, links will be provided in the description box below, along with my Twitch. Although I don't stream on Twitch as much anymore, um, I'm mostly streaming here on YouTube. Um, but regardless, um, anyways, yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, let me know your thoughts and whether or not you have similar experiences or have some similar thoughts, or if you have some completely different thoughts. I would love to hear them down in the comment section below. um and um and obviously keep it civil in the comment section. I'm not trying to push at any toes. This is just one man's opinion that I just feel passionate and strongly about, and I wish things would change and get better. I think things kind of are getting better. It's just I think things will get worse before they get better. And I think we live in a world of uncertainty right now. So regardless, I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Bye bye.